Good morning and welcome back to the Explicit Measures podcast with Tommy and Mike. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show.
Good morning, Mike. How you doing?
I'm doing well, just clipping along, keeping busy. The end of the year is happening fast. We're getting apparently like a kind of a cold wind coming through our area, so it's gonna be cold here pretty soon. We're getting into winter, and daylight savings time has happened, and all the things. It's just throws everything off.
Yeah. That's right. Daylight saving times. Do you know the reason why we even have daylight saving time?
I thought it was for people to get food to market quicker in the for farmers.
It's a fallacy.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, so I don't know. That's what I thought it was.
So first off, it was two different groups of people invented it. One were the Nazis. So right there.
All right.
But the other one was actually because there was no power at night, so you had to burn a lot of oil and candles.
Makes sense. That makes sense.
So
that seems much more reasonable of an answer.
Right. However, now it's the opposite's happening because we have our lights on even longer because we don't have to worry about how long is my candle going to burn.
So this is kind of an interesting point that you bring up here, Tommy, around like the light and how much light pollution we have now. This is actually goes back to like Javan's paradox a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about the cheaper you make something, you think, oh, they'll use less of it because we made it cheaper. No, actually, the opposite is true. The cheaper you make something, the more it becomes consumed. And because we've made electricity and light so easy to build and consume, now we have these things called light pollution. And so if you want more consumption of things, drive down the price of it, make it a commodity, and then you get more consumption.
Exactly. So that's the problem now. So Illinois was close to actually putting a rectifying a law, putting to vote to get rid of daylight saving time because we don't need it anymore.
I would agree with that. I don't think it makes any sense to have daylight savings time anymore. I would like to see that gone. Does the rest of the world? I mean, again, I know some countries shift, but most do not, right?
Most don't. Yeah, most do not. So
yeah, it seems odd. Yeah, let's not make it more hard for people to figure out what time zone you're in and how to get all that stuff working out. Anyways, okay. Enough about our introduction stuff of things. Today, this is a recorded episode for those of you who are listening online. Let's go into this with kind of a mindset of we've already recorded this one. We're not going to take any news today. So that being said, let's jump into our main topic today, which is a mailbag. Tommy, want to read us off our mailbag around monitoring? And
keep in mind it's Thanksgiving week too. So, we're still here. So
thank you for joining us on Thanksgiving.
Yeah. So I'm excited to hear your thoughts, Mike. So here we go. I am an education consultant in Ohio, supporting 70 school districts with over 120 Power BI dashboards, covering key initiatives like state test results, chronic absenteeism, I cannot say that word, chronic not being in school, and early warning systems. I've transitioned to using the Power BI app experience to streamline access for around 9,000 users, organizing dashboards by district using audiences. Previously, I tracked report level usage manually using the built-in usage metrics. Now I'm looking for the most automated and scalable way to monitor app level usage, specifically how often each district accesses their dashboard and how many users are engaging over time. Mm-hmm. I've explored Fabric capacity metrics and started enabling admin monitoring, but neither seems to provide granular usage data by app or by audience, which is critical for reporting back to districts quarterly. What's the best way to track Power BI app usage over time, ideally broken down by audience or group?
App usage. So this is a very specific question. It's not report usage. This is down to the app level of details. So I'm going to answer, well, there's a number of different ways to get data out of Power BI for usage and usage metrics. So there's a lot of things in there already that you can go grab and go use. Let's kind of maybe narrow down for this particular question, Tommy. I'm going to answer like directly how to find the app usage, and then we can talk about other solutions that make this a bit easier and automated maybe on top of that. So my first recommendation is you have to get familiar with the Scanner API. I believe the Scanner API is going to scan all the items or the artifacts, gives you all the details that are inside your tenant. That's the first side of things. And then once you have the some of the details around all the items. And again, this is kind of a mess because there's a lot of different teams building a lot of different things. There's a lot of items and events happening there as well. And so that should then give you a list of all the events that are occurring by what kind of information that you need to see. So that was where the technology piece, that's where that starts. You can also turn on workspace monitoring. Workspace monitoring is a feature on the workspace where you can turn on the monitoring of the workspace, and it gives you additional query level statistics and other statistics on top of it too. So the combination, I think, of those two items are probably where you want to start, like that Microsoft gives and exposes to you directly, the user. That's where you can start collecting information. Tommy, would you recommend anything else? Is there anything else you'd add there?
Honestly, it really is. There's no native out of the box really solution that does app monitoring. It explicitly what the kind of the mailbags in questioning. However, you can still do it. It just takes a little more configuration. So what I mean by that is you cannot go into the usage analytics, either the audit log or the usage, and say, hey, how many people viewed this app explicitly, and then actually track that in a data set. But you can track the content of the data set. So there's kind of a workaround solution, because I need the scanner API to know my audience.
Correct.
And I need to know what content's in an app, which the scanner API does show. It does show what app is associated, or what report and content is associated with what app. So then you just build your model in a certain way that it would show you the people accessing the app, but you're not going to necessarily get out of the box, hey, app A 10 views. You can get to that number, but you do need to kind of build your semantic model.
There's details, like it doesn't give you directly. It right. gives it to you you have to look at like who's rendering the app. Like there's an event that happens when the app is opened and the event is rendered, because that's an event item inside the log analytics, or the details that are coming out. So those are the two areas that we talked about. Workspace monitoring, which again, you find that in the workspace settings. You go over to once you open the settings, there's a menu that shows up on the left-hand side. You go all the way down to the item called monitoring, and you kind of turn that on. What that does is it basically streams data. Instead of using log analytics, that's what was traditionally used, was log analytics of all the events happening on a particular workspace. Now what you can do is you can turn on the workspace monitoring. It creates an event house. All the events that are being generated from the Microsoft side are now being sent to you. I will caution you on this one. Turning this on is quite chatty. There's a lot of events. And if you're running a report, it's also sending all the queries to the semantic model that are happening from the reports. So you can get a lot of data very quickly. So just be mindful if you're going to turn on the monitoring at the workspace level. Be prepared if you have a very busy workspace. And again, I'm assuming we've got a number of people going here. We're talking about, what does they say, 9,000 people that they're trying to report for. If you're at the 9,000 level, you could have a lot of people in reports hitting a lot of queries and a lot of data being generated very quickly. So you want to be very mindful of like the volume of information you're going to get into this event house.
Yeah.
So that's just one thing to be aware of. The other thing I would point out here, so there's a lot of different places where information kind of exists. And as an admin, you kind of need to know about where all these things are hidden somewhat, right? The other area that I would say is the Fabric Capacity Monitoring app. There's an application that's in the apps area of Power BI. And when you get the Fabric Capacity Monitoring app, not only does it give you some event-based things, like what happens, operation IDs, this operation occurred, it also will start providing you capacity metrics. So when you're on a particular FSKU or capacity, and again, I don't really know, based on what this customer is describing, it sounds like you're maybe on a pro or premium per user workspace. So in that situation, you're less worried about monitoring the capacity and making sure you understand how many users are hitting the reports. But if you are in a Microsoft Fabric environment, you, the admin, are now managing or monitoring the capacity. So you can throttle things. You can have too many people accessing a report. You can have a report that's poorly written, and that causes a lot of extra consumption on the capacity. So as you, the user who has the advantage of, the advantage, the upside of this is when you get to an F64 level, you can have unlimited users showing up to that, free users, not unlimited.
Yeah.
You can have free users and Power BI Pro users consuming content from that workspace. So at the F64 level, now we have a problem where, okay, we have a number of users that are not pro licensed users consuming reports and apps. What are they doing? How's that hitting our capacity? So the reason you buy the dedicated capacities is you can have larger amounts of users on the same capacity, which can bring your price down per user. So, and again, I'll just point out the capacity app is awesome. You can take a derivative of it. You can make one, bring the app in. You can make your own report on top of the existing data set. And the data set there actually lives on Microsoft's side of things. So the Microsoft side has their own Custo database that this report connects to. You can't edit the Custo database, but you can consume from it. So if you want to store that data or run a pipeline to go get data from that report, you can.
And that's a lot of work. And that's if you want to see a lot more than just usage, though, too. That's kind of what you're wanting to see, all the ins and outs of what's going on in the workspace. This is good old fashioned, just let me see who viewed what report, and they want to be able to build their own insights, because there's not a lot of data points to get started here, which I've always been amazed, Mike, when I've worked on kind of building out Power BI. I've always said, like, hey, sooner rather than later, I know we're not launching Power BI, today, but sooner rather than later, make sure that you're working with a developer to get that audit log and get the access and get starting that track. And that's one of the biggest things I say. And it never seems important, especially even before they actually launch, even if they're doing a pilot.
Yep.
But you want that data. And the thing is, again, it's really not a lot of data. You can do a lot with it, but at the very least, and let's make the distinction here too between the admin monitoring or the workspace monitoring and the audit log, right? Because a lot of people suffice with the admin monitoring or the workspace monitoring, saying, oh, I see my usage.
Yep.
I personally hate that, because it's only a 60-day rolling, 90-day rolling. That
we got to save it.
Tell me a lot. And
that's a good call out, Tommy.
Yeah. So
even in the capacity metrics app, I think it's only 14 days. It's even smaller. Like, so in the capacity metrics
really
app,
small.
It's a very small window of time. And again, like, let me just pick on your comment there a little bit, Tommy. Like, in the grand scheme of things, right? Are you really going back for Fabric capacity metrics? Are you going back 6 months and looking at the data?
Fabric capacities, probably not.
Probably not. But however, to your point though, Tommy, right? We kind of do want some general trending of information in a longer period of time. Like, maybe you aggregate something up to like the min maxes of by day. Maybe you, but 14 days I feel is a little bit light on the capacity metrics app. I think I'd like to see that one go up to like 30, 60, maybe 90. And then when organizations care about that data, dude, we've already got Fabric. We've already got lake houses. Every time I refresh this report, why not just let it dump all those tables that it's using in that model? Just dump the tables down to a lake house. I mean, that's what we have it for. So let it do a once a day dump, and we'll keep all that information directly inside the lake house, and we'll do a 1 day export. So that's another opportunity there as well for some additional monitoring. Tommy, have you noticed one thing? I'm going to dive into a little bit in the Fabric Capacity app. Have you been keeping your capacity metrics app up to date recently?
It is. So I go back and forth from using it, but I just noticed there's an update last week.
There is an update. Yes, they keep updating the app. So one thing that I would like to point out here around the Fabric Capacity Metrics app is when you go into the app, there's now a new column called Operation ID. You'll find this somewhere in the details. And they've also added like a details page in here as well. So there's a detail around some more of the information here as well. And I really like this new reporting piece because it really helps out with identifying when we have needs or when we're looking at particular operation IDs around testing out capacity pieces and figuring out what the heck is going on. So that's something I think is really interesting. I like to see this operation ID. It seems like more and more data or the data behind the scenes is kind of changing. Microsoft's adding more metrics to things, which is making it very helpful for us as a developer to figure out, okay, what is going on here? What information do we need to have in these tables that we can actually use and leverage inside the reports to help us get better information or insights around what is it doing?
Sure.
I like this.
But again, you're really talking about the admin side of Fabric, and that includes everything. And if I can bring it back, because I know how fun that part is, but I want to bring it back here to just the good old, and this is to me not just for admins, but we're talking here for me Power BI adoption, just usage, just pure. I'm not even looking at any lake houses. Or,
Sure.
Yeah. So
what I'm trying to point out though is like there's a lot of things that are happening like across different systems, and you're trying to kind of tie them together. You almost need like a data model of here's the scanner API, here's all the items I have, here is the capacity metrics, here's when those events are occurring and what events are happening. Here's workspace monitoring. Here's all the queries that are happening against my semantic models and other events. So when you look at these three lenses of like what's happening, Microsoft is kind of putting metrics down that they give you access to the information, but it's kind of up to you to build what works for you. And this is kind of one of the reasons why we've built a solution like an accelerator. If you go to the Azure Marketplace and look up, I think it's Business Intelligence Monitoring Accelerator. I think is what we have on the Azure Marketplace. We've built a solution that does a lot of automation of this. Like it's complex to get from these raw JSON files that the scanner API gives you into unflattening them out, making them into tables, building proper dimensions of reports, workspaces, apps. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you can have inside these monitoring things. So we've built like a solution to accelerate you on that one. So that's a kind of an off-the-shelf, white glove approach kind of to helping you get started with monitoring. Another off-the-shelf monitoring is the FUOM, Fabric Unified Admin Monitoring Solution. Have you played with this one at all, Tommy?
I have. This one's been fun. Is this the notebook, or is this is something different?
This is the one that Microsoft produced on GitHub.
Wasn't it a notebook or no?
Nope. It's pipelines. It's the whole enchilada. It's a full off-the-shelf solution. It sounds like you haven't played with it because you don't know what it is. So FUOM is this other solution that Microsoft has provided. So let me say it this way. Microsoft has provided details around, it's like gateways, it's workspace monitoring, it's all these APIs you can even hook into. So the FUOM solution hooks into the capacity metrics app and pulls the capacities for you, puts it down in lakehouses. So there's a lot of things happening inside this solution. And this is Microsoft developing what they feel is like a good starting point for monitoring or off-the-shelf monitoring. You can install the items into your workspace. You can get going from there. The downside of this is there's no support. You can get the solution, you can get it into your workspace. Microsoft's not going to support it. There's changes happening every so often. Microsoft is distributing it, but there's a big warning label at the bottom that says, if you use this, you just got to figure it out yourself. There's no support given to it. So I think it's reasonable to say we've installed it. It's not super difficult to install. There's just a lot there. There's just a ton of stuff that they have to like configure and get set up and put in there. So yes, it works, but I sometimes feel like some companies need like a little bit of a help.
Especially with all the things with Fabric and how quickly Fabric's changing. That's not the thing you want to implement in your organization as your default solution at all.
I don't know.
I think how things are rapidly changing with Fabric anyways, like things are getting removed. I wouldn't say this would be your default solution. Say this will work. This is what we'll implement. This is experimental. It's meant to be.
I don't think it's experimental. I think I would disagree with that statement. It's an unsupported solution. And if you have nothing, this is better than nothing, as I would say. So it does a lot of things like what other solution are you aware of, Tommy, that monitors gateways up or down?
Actually, there used to be a PowerShell one, but let's take a step back.
That was Rui Romano, and that was like 3 years ago.
I remember.
I mean, not that this doesn't use that. So the FUOM, I think, has some form of that as well going on.
Yeah.
But like, again, the idea is like, if you're really trying to get your head around your organization, what other options do you have? I don't think there's any other really good monitoring options. And again, if you're an admin, like, again, kind of how I'm hearing this question come in, hey, where's the off-the-shelf solution? Where's the one button click install? Where's the easy button to get monitoring up and running? there's not a lot of that out there right now. So that's something that's not it's not as easy to get your hands around.
Yeah, so I'm curious if the PowerShell scripts and modules are still supported, because honestly, a lot of organizations I knew did rely on that. But yeah, so you could use one, but I think we're looking at every scanning and every activity kind of solution here, where Mike, I want to take a step and kind of focus on what is the baseline, because you're raising some good points and I think all of this is important. However, let me ask you, for this type of person where we're really just in the Power BI world, what is the baseline that you would expect them to be tracking and pulling in?
What is the baseline?
Right, because you could do all of that. I wouldn't say that's all.
Really going to depend on your architecture, right? I mean, as an admin of your Fabric capacity, right? There's a couple things you need to do, right? As an admin, let's talk about that first, because I think that'll really frame out like what you want to do in monitoring, because I think that those two go hand in hand, in my opinion, right? So if I'm an admin, what should I be doing as an admin? I should be setting policies in the admin portal. I should be reporting up to leadership, stakeholders, essentially, how adoption's going. Have we built good process to add more workspaces, to add more users, to get more reports being built? And what kind of content are we building, right? So as an admin of Fabric, wouldn't there be some kind of metric around, here's the number of certified things that we have, here's the usage on certified items? I think those are like, if your strategy is build apps and deploy them, you want to track the building of those apps. How many apps do you have? Which ones are being used and by whom? So I'm just going to start there. Like, that's, to me, those feel like admin level tasks.
See, I would argue that at least for the purpose of who's writing this, I don't think this is an admin request. This is a person who's an education consultant who supports 70 school districts with the dashboards. I don't think that the admins or the audit logs, what a lot of people need to get out of this is only for admins. Most of it is. Most of it absolutely.
I didn't say anything about audit logs, Tommy. You're listening to what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm saying like they should be monitoring what is measured for success for them, right? So this person is helping as a consultant for them, fine, but they're building all this content. They're reporting back to their stakeholders. What did you do? That's what I just said. Yeah. I'm not talking about logs. I'm talking about what does the admin do?
And that's what I'm asking. What would you say then that's the baseline in terms of like what the minimum they need to track and pull in? Is it more than the usage? So, okay, let me rephrase it.
I don't understand your question. I think you should define what this person should be doing. And again, I would define this person, if you're building reports, making apps for customers, and then you're trying to report up to leadership what the results of what you've built, that feels administrative level stuff to me. Would you agree or not? Let's start there.
I would say it's obviously admin level permissions, but that data itself and who's going to hold on.
Why would I give you admin level permissions and not call you an admin?
Hold on. Yeah, sure. If I'm doing all the APIs and PowerShell pulls myself, I better be an admin.
Not saying that. I'm just saying.
Whatever. If the admin level permissions, obviously it's going to come from an admin. However, let me say the rest of this. The data that comes out of that doesn't necessarily, and more importantly, should be for more than just admins. So the admin may be the one who's creating the semantic model. The admin may be just pulling the data into a lakehouse or into a static table to actually get the historical records. That may be the only role that the admin does. However, it could be the rest of the team who's building, in a sense, the intelligence out of that data. The admin may not be the one who's actually going through and building the DAX measures and the report off of this. Because again, what's lacking in the workspace monitoring is outside of your 60-day interval is how the data is structured. And if you're trying to look at things over time, to your point, to say we've been more successful, here are things we need to retire. All those things are going to have to be off historical data. So yes, will an admin need to get involved? That's probably a better way to say it. Yeah, absolutely. You do need an admin involved in your tenant in order to get a solution here, bar none. However, the admin can just pull that raw, unstructured data into CSV, JSON, again, or Lakehouse with some trusted lieutenants out there who say, all right, build the semantic model, clean it up, make that relationship between, we have the scanner data that I pulled in. I have not done anything with it, but we have it. And we have all the usage. Now you can actually build in the relationships to actually say, okay, this report is related to that app. Here's the usage for all those reports. And so you can have who's not just admins using that data. And I think that's an important distinction here. More importantly, I'm going to lean even more to that and say, I think any BI team who does not have the ability to look at the usage metrics from a raw point of view and build their own intelligence out of that is lacking.
Where I'm struggling, Tommy, is the things that you're describing are admin features. The things that, even in this question here, I've explored the fabric capacity metrics. Okay, you can install apps. That's not an admin, but that's getting close to it. I've also looked at enabling the admin monitoring. My opinion here is this user is acting on behalf of this organization as an admin and doing admin level things. The only things that they're touching right now is they're doing what's the note here? I'm trying to look at the back of the message here. It's saying I explored the fabric capacity metrics and started enabling admin monitoring. These are both insufficient for what I'm looking for. And it says I've also used, what did it say? Previously, I tracked report level usage by using the built-in usage metrics, which again, that's only per workspace. That's a single workspace view of the metrics that are going on. And then, that's it. And this is an area that I'm saying is not. This is the area where I feel like things are not quite sufficient. And this is where I'm saying, if you want a better off-the-shelf solution, you need to go use other APIs or do more advanced things, such as go after the scanner API. So you don't have to be an admin and write out JSON and all these other things, but you do need to understand there are solutions out there. You do need to understand the API exists. FUOM is a good solution there. Our company helps out companies with this and builds good solutions on this one. Rui's solution a long time ago was doing a lot of admin monitoring things, but at the end of the day, what's really required here? What do we really want? I think what you want is tables of data with dimensions and facts. That's what you want at the end of the day. So to get from a scanner API to a somewhat dimensionally modeled bit of information, you've got to comb through a bunch of JSON and build a bunch of things. And so if you go look at the FUOM solution, I have it up here in my tenant now. I mean, there is probably about 20 different notebooks. They've got 4 different lake houses, and they've got probably about 15 pipelines to load activities, load the capacities, load capacity metrics, load the capacity refreshables, load the delegated tenant settings, load FUOM data, load the Git connections, load inventory, load items. There's all these pieces to this thing. So all this to say is there's a lot of data. When you turn on Power BI and all the metrics that come out of things, there's a lot in there. And you can start with the monitoring app. But really, I think what you're going to get down to is what needs to happen is you need to have the event level details at least in a table somewhere, and then you can build on top of it. And I'm saying the fastest path to get there is either go use FUOM or go figure out how to hit the scanner API, dump the data out, and then start from there. I mean, I think you're going to have to get to that level to get. There's nothing off the shelf that is that easy to get going.
And I would agree. Unfortunately, there is that pay to play here. There's really no other out of the box solution. That being said, though, I've worked with companies, or when I first started, I wasn't an admin of the organization, but I was an analyst, and I know we were tracking our adoption. And I talked to the team, the IT, and I said, "Look, here's this thing called usage in the scanner API. Can you just push that into a CSV file here, and I'll do the rest from there?" And that was fine, because here's the thing: all of that data there, it's this goes back to the thing that we've talked about a few times, where most BI teams aren't actually looking at data to actually see what they need to do differently and actually say what their actions are. And all the things in FUAM, all the things that are available in pipelines, that's fine. That's fine. That's great for an admin. That's great for an admin who needs to see capacity, who needs to see security. But if I'm supporting schools, or if I'm just the data guy, right? There's three things I need.
I think you're underestimating the power of this person. If this person is already in admin monitoring and already pulling out and pushing apps, this person has as much access as they need to get whatever they want to do. They're an admin. Assume it. What are they doing in their job that makes them not an admin?
I mean, they're supporting the dashboards and the reports. They could be. So, but let's think about, okay,
If I'm giving what if the role of the person, I guess what I'm arguing here, Tommy, is if the role of this person is to go back to leadership and say, here's how the app and the platform is being used, are you not an admin? That's my question.
you could have admin level permissions, but let's.
Are you not an admin? Yes or no?
Fine, you are an admin by nature, kind of thing.
That by definition, if I feel like that is a role that an admin should have. That's all I'm trying to make the point around here. You can argue, are you the admin of the workspace? Are you the admin of the entire tenant? Are you the admin of like the app? There's a lot of different admin level, like higher end privileges on things. But if I'm a role of an admin of a Power BI tenant, I think it's clearly if I am trying to sum up all the information that's happening from my organization and go back to leadership and provide, here's how we're using our investment. I don't care what you are, that feels like a task that is an admin level task. So that's why I would push this person into the questions they're asking. Now, to your point, Tommy, I do want to give you some like credit here to this, right? Which is when you look at like, do we have to give them full admin access of the entire tenant to do what they're doing here? I think no, right? So do I let them have the admin portal? Maybe, maybe not, right? There may be a separate IT admin where you divide the IT people own the settings menu, the admin settings, right? And this user, while they're still being admin-esque of reporting back and giving details, right? There's an IT admin that controls the backend. And so I think this line blurs very much between organization to organization. Some organizations will keep Power BI admin settings only in IT. Other organizations don't care and let a business user or a front end user own the admin settings of Power BI.
Right.
I mean, so I think you can't really specify all admin settings are only IT and everything else is not IT. And to your point, I agree. The controls you can give to users are very fine grained. Right, they can be nuanced per user and how that's been working. So I agree with you there, but I would argue the task that's being described here is an admin level task.
I don't know why I want to push back to you on so much on this, because to me, this is all about what I was doing when I was not an admin, when I was just a data analyst, when I was kind of at the forefront of Power BI to the organization. Because we use this data to eventually at the end of the year to tell my boss and their boss, like what usage went up, kind of thing. So yes, and I'll give you your flowers here. Where yes, I had admin permissions, but my job at the end of the day wasn't to make sure the capacity was running. Yeah.
I'm not going to fault you or I'm not going to fault this company for not giving you the proper title that you deserved. They were asking you to be a data analyst, which was the title. But what you were actually doing was you were acting as admin on the tenant, regardless of what they told your title was. I mean, realistically, right? So the fact that you tell me you had did you have let me ask another question. Let me just step right there. If you in that situation, Tommy, when you were the data analyst and they were asking you to report usage metrics about your tenant back up to leadership, what level of permissions did you have in the admin
Oh
portal?
yeah. No, I of course I had to.
No,
And
but
I
you had
had
all of them, right? My assumption here is you had all the admin privileges in the admin portal, correct?
yeah,
Okay.
I was a Power BI
Global admin. Okay. So the reason I point this out is because even though the job title didn't align with what was going on there, they were expecting you to be the leader, the role leader, the admin of the entire Power BI tenant. So even though your role wasn't really like, BI intelligence, director or something like that, which it probably should have been, right? It should have been a better title there. You were acting on behalf. You were that governing body that was in charge of bubbling any of the metrics up to the rest of the organizations. So that is important. Like I think that's the note I'm trying to make there.
So and I'll absolutely give you that. I'll absolutely give you that. It was interesting though that once I did create that usage report, we did have some great champions from the other departments. And after this is where to me the really the fruit of this or the impact of what this can be. I was just going through kind of talking with them. They are already savvy, but they were basically the assistant to the director of sales. So they had a lot of hold, but they knew Power BI was important. And I showed them what I look at to kind of say what to focus on. She's like, "Can you give me a version of that? Because I want to make sure our team's using the right reports." And this was not anyone in business intelligence. This was someone in sales.
Sure.
So I want to be able to track this to make sure that everyone's looking at the right report for quota. And I can then, when people complain that they don't know their numbers or whatever is going on, I can look back to say, have they actually looked at it when they have? Because that's the beautiful thing you can do with very basic data here is it's not all about how much data you can get. It's just simply having that data in a sense in a tangible way, whether it's a lakehouse or imported. One of the biggest things that we did was we created automation around it where any report that was more than 30 days past viewed, a little conditional formatting had a page just for that. So we knew what to retire and what to remove. So then those so what I'm talking about there, this is all based on the admin data, so to speak. It's all based on you do not get that information without pulling that in, whether it's a service principal or again someone with a global admin role or a Power BI admin role.
Yeah.
But the ability to what they can do with it, this is where I'm I think making the distinction here on just pure usage is kind of where I'm falling on the sword here is because I don't think enough people do it.
Well, there's a difference between what I think you're describing here, Tommy, which is on one side of this, there's can I get my hands on the data, right? Can I get the data down? Can I use the API calls that I need to do? Can I get the information into a lakehouse? That's one side of the equation. Can I supply at least the data that I need to get? The other side of this equation, I think, is okay, now how do we distribute the usage metrics? What does the distribution of the usage metrics look like? And how do you delegate that portion of the admin role to other people? And I would agree with you, Tommy. The way I read this question, excuse me, the way I read this question is we are having issues just getting to the data. We're at step one. What you're describing and what you're speaking to is step two of this, which is, okay, now that we have some known usage, where do we build the common report? Where do we build our internal company usage metrics app where we can push out to the broader part of the organization? Hey, teams, here's now what I want you to start consuming at your workspace level. So where's the linkage between here's the admins of this workspace, here's the report that uses row level security, and then I will start showing you when I go into this report, all the admins can see the workspaces they own and the activities that are occurring on their workspace. Like that's a different problem. And I don't hear this question even being asked with that yet. They're not trying to distribute insights on usage. They're just trying to get to the usage is what is how I'm reading it. But that just may be my interpretation.
No, I think that's a good point though too, because just even the basic question of what the person's asking for is just over time. And I love that so much where, really what they're trying to say, how they're engaging over time. And this is a very basic ask that honestly, everything we've talked about is valid because you can't do that without everyone talked about. much less more than where do you go from exploring. I guess the biggest thing is there really is no other way, is there, Mike, for if I want to create a report that's showing me my app activity dashboard, let's say, looking at all the views, the number of people last time it was viewed by app. There's really no other way without getting the raw data of the scanner API.
Yes.
To get the metadata, and then using the audit log to get the usage.
Correct.
And then just basically creating a semantic model that way, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. That's kind of what, I mean, that's kind of what I'm surmising here. It's like, how can I get this customer in the fastest path from high volumes of data into a solution that works? And so again, this is kind of what I've gone back to, Tommy. Like, yes, I understand what's going on here, but I think FUAM is a bit overbuilt. It's like the everything solution, right? Mm-hmm. And this is where I think we struggle a little bit, is like, okay, what parts of a solution do you care about? Do you care about, it's almost, you need like a piecemeal solution to some degree, right? Hey, these are the things I care about. What parts of a deployment solution should I be deploying? Should I be deploying a full solution around, gateways? Like, this customer may not have any gateways. It may all be in the cloud. Okay, fine, great. Like, no gateway. So that part of the FUAM solution isn't required. All the other usage metrics, like, are you using KQL or other databases that are there? Like, you may not be using Fabric. You're only caring about Power BI usage. So, I mean, kind of describing like what you need to monitor and then getting that down to like something that's easy to use. I would agree. A lot of this is custom built. A lot of this are built by companies, organizations, or you're working or researching things. So my recommendation or advice to this one would be at least go install FUAM on a place or an environment where you can see and test that solution out. It has a lot of really good examples of getting access to API calls, how to set it up, all the different things that you can do with monitoring. Yeah. And then start from there, right? And then you can kind of basically take the best parts of that and only migrate pieces of that you need, and then you can get the metrics and the reporting that you want.
How much would you think that people should actually invest in more custom solutions? Because most of this is all done by hand. It's a GitHub repo. Again, some supported, some like Rui Romano's, which I believe is actually archived now.
It is archived, and it's actually, I mean, we started our solution based on our knowledge and what we learned from Rui initially. His semantic model is extremely complex, and he's doing a lot of weird relationship-based building things in there that no longer apply anymore because the JSON has changed format multiple times since then. And there's, again, to get not too technical on this thing, Tommy, but like when we get into the admin monitoring, when you pull the admin metrics, certain tools have 2 or 3 columns that have different data in them based on where it came from or what tooling is providing the information. So even then, like the data you get back is not in a unified, simplified schema for everything. It's still kind of in flux. It's still changing a little bit. So, you may have something called, again, this is a bad example, but you may have something called workspace_ID. You may have a column called workspace. So, or source workspace or something like that, right? So each tool is providing metrics back to a central system, whatever that may be. But when you pull the API data, you may have 2 columns that mean the same thing, but they need to be unified into a single column for your reporting. Like, that's the kind of stuff that you have to understand and dig through. This is weeks and months of time of figuring this stuff out. That's why I would recommend partnering with a company or, call me up. I've got a solution. Like, we can have a solution deployed in an hour or 2 in your environment, and you have some basic reporting, and you can start using the scanner API. Another part of this too, Tommy, that I think is really relevant here is the speed of monitoring. Again, back to this question around what's the best place? How do you figure out this ideal solution here? I also want to note here too, the more frequently you want to pull the data into an analytics centralized reporting solution, the more expensive it will cost you, right? Every time you run a solution to go get data, it's going to cost you more compute units to go run the job, per se. So what I want to point out is that doesn't have to be the case. Whatever you build, whatever you pick off the shelf or whatever you talk to, I want you to be mindful of, do you need this data once a month? Do you need this data every week? Do you need this data every day? What are you using the data for? And I think to the question here, back to your point earlier, Tommy, was if we're just looking on number of people, which apps, which audiences, you're probably good pulling this once a week and going through the data because you're going to provide bigger updates around what's happening in the environment. So pull the last 7 days, save it down to the lake, boom, you're done. You save yourself a ton of money by not having to run that job every single day. So there's also a lot of opportunity here to cost save around reporting and metrics because, I mean, gosh, Tommy, I don't even have that big of a tenant. And I've got like oodles of data. It can get big fast if you're not really paying attention to the analytics.
Oh, yes. And I mean, what we used to do is we pulled, I actually, this was before AI, man. I had a PowerShell script at my old company, which I'm not sure if I took it with me because it might have been some NDA. But basically, whenever you ran it, it would ask you, do you want to get the activity from the last 30 days if you haven't pulled it since then? Do you want to also get the scanner API? Do you want to get the gateway refresh? And then do you want to get the list of users? And you just choose from those options, and it would basically look at everything, run, go. And it would push into CSV at the time. You know, CSV on a local SharePoint drive, which wasn't great. But no, guess what?
It got some of the job done, but now we've got now it's way more complicated now.
And it really is, because I think too, especially when you're thinking of the word adoption, right? It's going to be a lot more than just report usage. And we're going to be getting to that, you know, especially at some point. You know, I see 120 dashboards in 90 schools. I already hear managed self-service coming at some point, or that ability for the schools to build their own data. Then what, from a usage point of view? But I'll before we again try to boil the ocean there, I think there's a very straightforward solution here, and it's been the same solution for years. From a baseline point of view, if you just want the bare bones, you want to make sure that you get from point A to point B data wise, you're pretty much dealing with the same solution if you don't want anything other bells and whistles. That being said, with what Microsoft's doing with Mike, what you're doing too, there's a lot more sophisticated alternatives out there.
What basic solution are you referring to?
I'm just talking about pulling the API, pulling it into a CSV kind of thing. It's not nothing really out of the box. Just
I would call that level 2 of the solution. I think level 1 of the solution is go to the workspace and use the workspace. Use the workspace usage app. I mean, I don't use them anymore, but again, I don't know how this person's just deploying things, but the workspace usage app, that's all you get out of the box. That's the only out of the box thing you get. So that's level 1.
I specifically did not mention that because to me that is, I'm trying to think of the analogy there, but I would not say that's even a temporary. That's a solution you have if you need something real quick, but that is not on a stepping stone to get in the audit log to me. Personally. I
agree. I'm not saying that it is.
Okay.
I'm just saying that is the easiest, simple solution you can get there. And you in the workspace usage metrics, if you go to the filter pane on the right-hand side, you can kind of hack it a little bit where you run the report, it gives you the workspace level usage. And if you open up the filter pane on the right-hand side, if you remove the report ID from that report, you can then see all usage inside the entire workspace. So that's somewhat helpful.
Yes.
But you can't really get anywhere with it. There's no way to export it. It doesn't have a semantic model. Again, to your point, Tommy, it's extremely limited. That is probably the easiest, quickest way on a per workspace level to see usage. Now, I'm assuming here, because this customer is thinking about this one, and again, I'm also looking at organizational dashboards. We're talking about 9,000 users. We're talking about different apps. I'm assuming they're using Power BI apps and not org apps, which would allow you to have all the org apps in one single workspace, which is a Fabric thing. So if you have organizational apps, that's all in one workspace. And then you get, I think, different metrics based on that, because now you have a single workspace with many apps in it. And so I think even the structure of what you're doing potentially, again, this is really if you're in Fabric or you're not in Fabric, I do like the idea of organizational applications, but it really shifts on, you have to rethink your architecture, because user audiences no longer exist.
Yeah.
That's not a concept that you would use there.
That's a really good point.
So there's a lot of like ways you can distribute. I still do adhere to like whether you're using a workspace app or an organizational app, both of those are the proper way to deploy stuff, like to get it out to your broadest audience. I think that's the way to go.
Isn't it amazing, Mike, that still after 10 years, we'll say 8 years since the API has been out, there's really not a ton that's changed with this. Like you talked about Funa, I'm sure, but to me, Mike, it's a great solution, sure. But the fact that it's something that's not, again, actively supported and it's an at your own risk thing, that's the best that we have right now. Yes, you have that to me is that is not an adequate answer there.
Yes, I agree with your comment. But I want to add a little bit more context to this. The reason why there isn't a good off-the-shelf solution to get this to go, I think the issue, Tommy, is because the issue is because the data underneath the monitoring is continually shifting. It's very difficult to build a consistent solution when your underlying data is constantly evolving and changing and doing different things. So a solution built today may not work well in 2 months from now. A solution built today might have to have different data or different inputs to a solution that was 6 months ago. Right? So to me, that is the issue that we're dealing with here.
And that is going to be the problem, but and that's fine. And I totally understand that, but if you're an organization going, all right, let's launch this and we're going to track everything this way and things break. Yeah. So that's why I think we were talking about the baseline here. There's a ton you can go down, and trust me, there's a lot of rabbit holes being able to go through. And there's a few great community things that I actually never heard out from before. From PH Data is another one that is actually another solution I never saw before. But for the most part, they all start in the same place. They all start with the API, making that call, and then getting that data in some one other that way or another.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm going to go back to there needs to be better solutions that are more easily can start you just get monitoring turned on. We have a solution. We'll see where it goes. We'll see what customers want to see the solution kind of evolve and do a better thing. But I definitely think there's an opportunity here to help people build a better monitoring level solution across their entire Fabric or Power BI instance for that matter. I do feel like when you are monitoring, there is a commitment that you're going to have to just go with Fabric, right? So you could get the details down using other tools, but to be honest, the easiest way to get going with monitoring, if you're going to build your own proper solution, you need a minimum of a Fabric workspace because you're going to need pipelines, you're going to need storage, you're going to need to transform the data with notebooks or some other way of shaping and shifting that data around. That's what you're going to need. You're going to need something like that just kind of works. And so when I think about solutions for monitoring, that's the starting point of what we should be talking about, which is if you're going to be doing monitoring, your company should probably be committing, if you're not going to use the standard stuff, you're going to need to figure out a solution to do this in. And the easiest way to do it is bolt it directly onto Fabric with a Fabric workspace. And you can go down to an F2.
Yeah.
Right. So an F2 would let you do a lot of this. Again, if you don't do it fast, if you don't have a lot of data that you're trying to get in every day or every hour, I think an F2 would easily be able to support that level of investment, which is $155 US each month. That's reasonable, I think, for a reporting solution.
It's not bad.
Not bad. All right. That being said, I think we've beat this question up enough. Really good discussion on admin monitoring. What does it look like? Even around what are the roles of an admin and what are the parts of that onion as well. So hopefully we gave you some insight there. I'm sad to say what we have found, there is no real easy off-the-shelf solution. You're going to need to go hit APIs. You're going to need to go get the scanner API lit up. That will then give you, I think, the details that you want to see, but you're going to need to spend some time digging in it. If you have questions around this or you need help with this, reach out to Tommy and I. We do this. We know how these APIs work. We are consultants, and we both help out organizations to get their monitoring in place and under wraps for whatever you need. So with minimal investment, I think you can get up and running with some monitoring solutions. That being said, thank you very much for listening to the podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode around monitoring and fabric monitoring. We got some value out of it. That being said, if you don't mind, please share this episode with somebody else if you like it. We'd also love for you to become a member of our channel. These episodes will be released as soon as they're produced and on the channel in the members area. Tommy, where else can you find the podcast?
You can find us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to subscribe and leave a rating. It helps us out a ton. And you know what? Share with a friend since we do this for free. You have a question, idea, or a topic that you want us to talk about, like today in a future episode, head over to powerbi.tips/podcast, leave your name and a great question. But make sure you're very, very clear on what you want us to answer, because anything nerdy, we're going to go off on a tangent. And finally, join us live every Tuesday and Thursday, a.m. Central, and join the conversation on all Powerbi.tips social media channels.
Thank you all so much, and we'll see you next time.